According to the Family Code of the Philippines, under Article 149, family is the foundation of the nation and is the basic social institution which public policy cherishes and protects. But in the modern society, where the definition of family relations is evolving, it has become more difficult to discern the responsibilities, roles, and titles of each person within the family unit. From the traditional family ideals, which includes a husband, wife, and their children, the family unit has now evolved to include couples, individuals, or relatives who have adopted children either of blood or not, and single parents who have a child from either a previous relationship or through artificial means. From the legal standpoint, there are different means to protect the rights of the family as a whole, the rights of family members, especially the children, and the responsibilities of each of them. What are the rights of children? Legitimate, illegitimate, and legitimated. What are the differences of each? Who has the right to have parental authority over them? Good evening. You are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
And I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight we will discuss your legal rights on adoption and child custody, what you need to know to legally adopt, and what you need to do to gain custody of a child.
Our guests for tonight are Attorney Frederick Vincent Lu, Managing Partner of the Lu Mamangun Huco Law Office, and Attorney Rick Sabornay, Associate at the Castillo Lamantan Pantaleon and San Jose Law Offices.
Good evening, compañeros.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you for so Derek and Ricky. No?
Yes.
So yeah, this is a particularly interesting topic because sa mga Filipinos kasi we have a lot of extended family, and then minsan what happens is that I'll go to Japan or I go abroad and I'll leave custody to someone, and then later on nagkakaroon ng issue on custody. No?
And so I think very controversial, especially for those who either legally separate or get an annulment, or those who are not married but then end up having a child.
Right.
So from a legal standpoint, this is one of the most, I guess, personal and sensitive topics because it's very it's very painful to lose
custody. Should we go first
Yeah.
and talk about adoption?
Why we go ahead with the adoption first? No?
First, let's go to adoption. And normally, these are for people either who want to add to their children or want to have kids. And I guess we first go into a discussion of who are qualified to adopt.
Yeah, well, syempre anybody who is not disqualified under the law of legal age can adopt as long as they haven't been convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude. Pwede silang mag-ampon. No? So that's how it is.
Can you, I guess, detail those who are not qualified? I know there are affiliation
and
restrictions,
also there are age requirements, right?
Yes.
I mean, one, of course, you have to not to be, dapat hindi ka na minor. But then, in terms of the age gap,
merong 16 age difference. Dapat yung adopters, adoptee.
Yeah.
How many years?
16 years, no? And of course, the exception then is that if it is your own child.
Of course.
Tapos,
or if it's the legitimate child of the person you're marrying.
Right.
Okay.
All right. What are the other restrictions? I know there are restrictions on, let's say, stepfathers or what have you. Can you outline some of those restrictions?
Basically, you're qualified to adopt if you're of legal age, you are mentally sound, emotionally sound, psychologically sound. So in cases of disqualifications, for example, if you've been convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude, then you won't be qualified to adopt.
Okay.
So of course the age requirement is there. If you're less than 16 less than yung 16 age difference ninyo, then you're not qualified to adopt.
Okay, all right.
What about minimum age for you to adopt?
So you need to be of legal age, of course.
Which means 18 years old.
Yes.
Okay, I have a theoretical question because in the United States, you have this director, Woody Allen, who eventually ended up marrying the adopted child that he had with his, by now, ex-wife. So in the Philippines, would that be possible?
Actually, merong legal impediment dun, because the family code says that you cannot marry someone that you had adopted.
Yeah.
Malinaw
Even
na
if they're
malinaw
not
yun.
related,
Right.
tsaka even if you eventually separate from your ex-wife na kasama mo mag-adopt, you
Right,
cannot
right.
marry.
That's right.
Yes,
Because it's
yes.
against public policy, according to the family code.
Now, what are the what are the legal effects, no, when it comes to adoption? I mean, some lalo na in our culture, no, sadly, even up to now, when people say you're adopted or ampon, as they would say, there's this stigma, no. But I know from law, from what I learned, no, they actually have more benefits.
That's
Right.
right.
Can you expound on that?
Well, it's simple, Actually, being adopted raises you to the level of being a legitimate child.
That's right.
No? So, in fact, there are some parents who have illegitimate children who adopt their children to improve their status. No? So, the stigma should not be there. In fact, it is more of a benefit rather than a drawback to be adopted, because you not only become the compulsory heir of your adoptive parents, you also remain the compulsory heir of your blood parents or yung biological.
Yeah.
So you
And I guess,
inherit both ways.
One
no?
Yeah.
other thing to clear the misconception that an adopted child is not at the same level as a legitimate child. When the parents, the adoptive parents, pass away, how much is a share of a legitimate child and an adopted child?
Yung legitimate child kasi adopted child has the same share as that of a legitimate child, while that of an illegitimate child has the half share lang.
So talagang parang full-blooded siya.
better pa yung
Yeah.
adopted
And
child.
he or she, the adopted child, inherits from both parents, di ba? Kung buhay pa yung, let's say, from the adoptive parents as well as the natural parents, right?
That's right. Although may question dyan, no, yung parang sinasabi na dahil dun sa repeal nung Domestic Adoption Act, baka pati yun nasama na. Although there's a position na hindi kasama yung intestate succession dun sa repeal. So dapat pati dun sa biological parents mo, you can still actually inherit.
Now, what are the processes? When I want to adopt a child, ano yung first step that they have to go through, yung legal process? Because most people, sometimes, some of the Filipinos, no, kukunin ko na, aangkupin ko na yan.
Actually, that's
Diba?
something we have to clear to the
very
viewers
oo.
out there. It is illegal if you just put on the birth certificate of
Oh,
a
yeah.
child na ikaw yung parent. Because nung unang panahon, madalas
Yeah,
ganun na lang eh. Pag sinabi nila, iniwanan na ng mga magulang sa ospital yan. So they
Yes.
just write the name, them as parents.
That's
But this
actually
is
a
actually
specific
a crime.
kind of crime.
Yes, it's a
a
crime.
stimulation of birth, no?
Yeah.
That's
It's a
Yeah.
specific crime.
kind of crime. Yeah.
So, yung adoption kasi you need to look at it as a legal process by which a child becomes a legitimate child of the adopter.
Yes.
So, yung on the contrary, you have simulation of birth na hindi siya legal na proseso, you just pretend na anak mo itong tao na to.
Oh, you pretend. But but there is there are a lot of cases like that. There are a number of cases I know like that. But if no one questions it, there's a presumption that it's regular.
That's right.
Unless someone files a case
That's
against
correct.
it, right?
Yeah.
But
And
it is. But you're right. It is
Yes.
illegal and it is.
Yeah.
And
crime.
just to clarify, if a child has no more parents, meaning iniwanan, they were left in the hospital, where should the adoptive parents or prospective adoptive parents go?
Yeah, ano
Meaning,
yung
what should they
process?
file in court, and
Well,
who should
in
they
the-
name as? Whose consent should they get?
Well, DSWD usually has the care and custody of
Yes.
these orphans.
Yeah,
ano?
they're called abandoned children
Yeah.
or foundlings.
Foundlings. And you would have to get the consent of the DSWD for that.
Yes,
Okay.
yung in response to your question, Rod, no, for those na who are interested in adopting, they usually go to yung mga child placing agencies na accredited ng DSWD, or they go to DSWD. Because you have to understand, before you can adopt a child, it has to be declared a legally available child, legally available for adoption.
Kasi ang state may interest dyan. May
Yes,
interest
definitely.
dyan.
What
It's
if
not just
the parents consent? Kasi some of the common scenarios that at least I know of is that sometimes the kasambahay will have an
yeah.
illegitimate child and then they leave it with the person they're working for, with their employer. So in that case, what would the person who wants to adopt, what types of consents would they have to get?
No, clearly, you have to get it from the mother. No?
That's right.
Because she has to relinquish the parental authority towards the adopting parents.
And is there
then-
a form for that? Is that they have to just make it?
There's
in
what you call
ordinary-
an affidavit of consent.
All right. Okay.
So, of course, yun nga, kailangan mo ng consent ng parent, biological parent. Kung may kapatid yan, kung may anak ka na 10 years old above, kailangan mo din ng consent before you can actually adopt another child. Kung may spouse yung adopter, kailangan din ng consent nun. At the same time, kung may spouse na din yung ina-adopt, kailangan din yun. Kasi you have to understand, hindi lang bata talaga yung pwedeng i-adopt. Diba? So sometimes, even a person above 18 can be adopted under certain circumstances.
If it is your own biological child,
That's right.
If it is a illegitimate child of yours that you want to improve the status of, hindi nag-a-apply yung 16 years older, yung kailangan 18 years, hindi nag-a-apply.
And Attorney Derek,
Yes.
I guess one thing we have to clarify, a lot of people don't know that they would even have to adopt their own child if they gave birth before 18 years old.
Yes.
If you have a child before you were married but you're no longer a minor, ibig sabihin 18 and above, then you can legitimate your child, meaning they can be legitimated just by getting married to their spouse. But if the mother is below 18, that child becomes illegitimate even if she gets married to the
Subsequent
father
marriage.
after.
Yes,
So
that's right.
for all viewers out there, if you're below 18 when you have your child, then you still have to adopt your own child. I know it's
Yes. Oh,
counterintuitive,
Kind
diba?
of, it's weird,
But
no?
it's
Pero,
really required.
even if it's your own child, you have, at the time that you had a child, you can't have it legitimated. You can't have him or her legitimated.
If they're below 18.
If you were below 18, because there was an impediment when when the child was born. All right, we have some questions from our viewers. Let's answer them with the help of our guests, starting with Grace. Can a Filipino father adopt his illegitimate child of a different nationality and living in another country with the mother?
Well, the answer there is it would depend on the existing laws of that country where that child was residing as to laws on adoption. No?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not so much here, no?
Yeah, kasi the jurisdiction would be there in the country where the child would be found, or where the child resides. Kung dito sana, then we would be using laws of the Philippines. But
That's
there
right.
doon, that would be some other law.
And he can't force the courts here to take over, like to basically come up with an adoption
No,
That's right.
No,
order
No,
for the
because
child.
the courts here would have no jurisdiction over
Over
the
the child.
country they were in.
Okay.
Right.
Our next question is from JC. My wife had a daughter before we got married. I'm planning to adopt this child legally for her to use my family name because currently she is using the surname of my wife when she was single. What will be the process and how long will it take? Any estimate amount of cost that will be needed? My stepdaughter is 10 years old now. Also, is there a specific time frame before a child can be considered abandoned by the biological father?
Okay,
Daming
so the
questions.
first one is the
is,
process. Yeah.
Can he adopt? Pero it looks like the adoption is more for the child to also carry his surname.
That's right.
So maybe
Pero-
a consideration here is kung yun lang yung gusto niya, if it's only carrying the father's surname, maybe he can just give his consent
Yeah.
for the.
It seems parang hindi siya yung tatay ni
Yeah,
Hindi siya
actually,
tatay.
that's how I
tatay,
understand
no?
the question.
Tapos parang at the same time, based on the question, hindi rin sila kasal nung tatay. Kasi the child used the surname of the
mother.
The mother.
Right.
Yeah. So I think she was a single mom, no, and then she now has a husband.
Yeah.
I would assume,
No,
right?
sorry, parang, I guess
Yeah.
husband or they're together.
Or together,
Yeah.
and he wants to adopt her daughter, di ba? His partner's
Siguro unang
daughter.
comment ko doon, they will have to jointly adopt. Kasi since illegitimate child itong bata na ito, kailangan silang dalawa yung mag-adopt dito. Because the rule is, spouses should adopt jointly.
All right. Okay.
Hindi naman niya anak to, anak nung kanyang asawa
right,
or
asawa, yeah.
kanyang kinakasama.
I see.
Yun.
So all right.
What about the
the-
other question on process? How long will this
wow.
start? And cost?
Well-
Is it going to be expensive?
Well, it really depends on
depends who you wanna adopt.
who you want to adopt and of course who your representation will be. No?
That's right.
There are some different ways of charging, I guess. In terms of time frame, well, it depends on the speed of the judge that is going to be handling.
Can it take, like, how
Siguro
short?
a year,
a
a year is
year
short?
and a half?
Kasi you have to understand that there's also a requirement of a supervised trial custody
Right,
before you can actually adopt. Pero siguro another comment based on the question, no, he mentioned na, or he mentioned that the child is already 10 years old. So kailangan din ng consent,
Consent,
syempre, nung
right.
bata.
How about the concern of the biological father?
Well,
Oo.
that would of course depend on if the father can still be found.
If his location is still known, no?
How
If
long
so-
is it going to be considered para they can say that the biological father has abandoned the child? That was part of the question.
May bagong law na RA 9523, pinaikli niya yung definition ng abandoned child eh. Dati 6 months yung time frame. Now it's just 3 months, pwede nang i-declare na inabandon ng
And therefore, you don't need the consent of the
Yes, that's
the
right.
biological father.
That's
But
right.
but if you know that the biological father is still around, you need his consent.
You need his
Yes, yes,
consent.
you do.
All right. So here's another question. Jerry is asking, I'm single, I'm a single gay man and have already in my care a baby girl whom the mother consented for adoption. The father is already dead.
Okay.
My worry is the SWD might make it difficult for me to adopt because of my status and sexual preference, even though I am fit morally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially. If the SWD will not approve as required by the court for legal adoption, what will happen to her? All right.
Well, obviously, when you talk about requirements naman, you also take into consideration the well-being of the child. No, the paramount interest that we have here is in the welfare of the child. No, now for me, yung being gay should not be a barrier towards being able to adopt children. And I think naman that courts would not consider sexual orientation insofar as it does not affect the child, the child itself, insofar as to consider whether or not the father, the gay father, would be able to adopt the child. No? I think what would come into play would be his economic fitness, his psychological makeup. Yeah, because I think society has come to now understand and to accept that it is not bad.
That's right.
In case he's not qualified to adopt, where does the child go? Considering the mom already seems to have abandoned, the child's custody goes to.
Yeah.
Siguro, sa
DSWD
DSWD.
na yan.
oo.
Yeah, DSWD na yan.
Okay. We have another question from Albert. My wife has committed adultery 3 times while working in another country. I know this because she posts photos of herself with her partners on social media.
Wow.
We have a child together and she is now claiming that I am not the biological father. How can I prove that she is an unfit mother so that I can get full custody of my child?
Right.
So now we go into custody.
Okay, this is a very complex case.
Yeah.
Pero the first thing that we have to deal with here is the issue of filiation. Because they had the child during the time that they were married. So the presumption is that the child is legitimate. No?
That's right.
For her to be able to say that it is not his, then you have to go through the process of DNA evidence maybe.
Oh, they have to go to court
Yes.
for
Yes.
her to prove the non-filiation.
Right.
The
For him
child
to
is-
prove. For him
No,
to
for
prove.
her.
because
The
she's
mom
one
is the one
claiming.
She was the one
alleging.
claiming that.
Because
okay.
filiation cannot be
Right.
attacked collaterally.
Yeah,
diba?
that's right.
You have to make
Exactly.
it directly, meaning
Yes.
she has to claim it and then court and prove it in court.
Yes. So I'm assuming that he's the one stated in the birth certificate that he was the father. So she has to counter that, right? Yeah, she counter that.
I have a
presumption
question
of
in
regularity.
relation to the adultery because he was saying that she had committed adultery 3 times.
Yeah.
So one question would be, is her acts of posting photos of herself with partners in social media enough proof for adultery?
Well-
and second, since she's abroad, is that considered a crime? Kasi our
Yeah.
our laws in criminal laws are territorial,
Correct.
meaning you have to commit it in the Philippines. So,
Exactly.
what
Siguro,
would be?
it's going to be a factual issue, no? Kasi hindi naman porket nag-post ng,
Yeah,
talagang
yeah,
adulterous na yung babae.
Unless talaga it was a film.
Unless
It was a film, no?
yung picture, no?
Yeah.
Pero it can be used against, you should remember that immorality is one ground for you to be considered, for it to be a compelling reason.
Right.
Para
To lose custody.
To lose
Yes,
custody.
right.
Yeah, she's an unfit parent.
He uses the term adultery very loosely, no? Because when we use adultery in terms of Philippine context, it has to be having carnal knowledge of a
having
woman.
sexual
Yes,
intercourse.
sexual intercourse
So,
already.
but if it's committed abroad, can he file a criminal case against her for adultery?
Well, no, because
of course not.
principle of territoriality would apply.
All right.
Okay.
All
See,
right.
Rod, keep that in mind. That's
that in
your
mind,
wife. If she's
Remember,
flying
it
out.
was the woman. It was the woman committing
Yeah,
adultery.
exactly.
Yeah, keep
So I know I'll be flying abroad. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Women
very
talaga,
interesting topic.
And it's Women's Month pa naman, so.
But for now, we'll have to take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. Yeah.
Adoption has become popular in the last 10 years when many local celebrities have opted to adopt children prior to getting married. However, adopting a child is not as easy as it seems. According to Article 183 of the Family Code, a person of legal age and has full civil capacity and legal rights may adopt, provided that he has the means to support the child or children, legitimate or illegitimate. In addition, the adopter must be at least 16 years older than the child to be adopted, unless the adopter is the parent by nature of the adopted or is the spouse of the legitimate parent of the person to be adopted. There are also paperworks that need to be handled. Under Article 188, the written consent of the following to the adoption shall be necessary. The person to be adopted, if 10 years of age or over. The parents by nature of the child, the legal guardian, or the proper government instrumentality. The legitimate and adopted children, 10 years of age or over, of the adopting parent or parents. The illegitimate children, 10 years of age or over, of the adopting parent, if living with said parent and the latter spouse, if any. The spouse, if any, of the person adopting or to be adopted. Thus, the Family Code has listed persons that are not eligible to adopt. The guardian with respect to the ward prior to the approval of the final accounts rendered upon the termination of their guardianship relation. Any person who has been convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude, and an alien.
You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel with our guests, Attorney Vincent Frederick Lu and Attorney Rick Sabornay, Associate at the Castillo-Lamantan, Pantaleon, and San Jose Law Offices.
Yeah, what an interesting topic and a sensitive one, as we mentioned earlier, lalo na sa mga Filipinos, no? Siyempre, we're a close-knit family, and it's always important, no? Pagdating sa custody of children. Now, let's talk about custody in cases of annulment and legal separation.
Or for relationships that are not married.
Yeah, yes. So, lalo na, kunyari, nagkaroon ng, you were together, you had a living partner.
So let's start with illegitimate children, meaning if the parents were not married in the first place, who gets custody of the child?
Well, malino naman yun, it's the mom, ano? Lalo-lalo na yung tinatawag na tender age presumption, which is pag below 7 years old. No? It should be with the mother. I think naman that is one of the yung parang you come on of getting married for the guy so that he will have joint custody with the mother instead of just having the mother have the custody over the child.
What if the marriage was void from the start, meaning there was a defect or there was a lack of a marriage license, so it turns out to be void?
So illegitimate yung child.
Yes, exactly.
Then you follow the maternal preference rule, the tender years rule, which was earlier explained na if below 7, talagang sa mother mapupunta. Yung custody.
Okay.
Because you have to understand na custody is a consequence of parental authority. So kung nag-asawa kayong dalawa yung merong parental authority, kayong dalawa yung merong custody ng bata.
But if you're not married, then the presumption is with the mother.
With the mother.
Yes.
Now, question: what are the exceptions to that? What are the exceptions for the mom to lose parental custody, or parental authority and parental custody?
Even if the child is illegitimate.
Right. Well, yun yung paramount interest. No? Okay. Kapag the mother already poses as a threat to the well-being of the child, then the mother can be deprived of her custody.
In other words,
over
the father, the biological father, can file a petition in court. Let's
Yes.
say the woman is,
Sure.
let's say she's
Drug addict.
yeah,
You
drug
know,
addict,
drug
or
Insane,
yeah,
may
yeah.
communicable
or,
disease.
or not economically, independent, or
Right.
parang na-
Or
So those
yeah.
are compelling reasons that can be a basis to declare the mother unfit for the custody of the child.
So now let's go to couples that are legally married but become subject to legal separation or
Or
annulment.
annulment.
Who gets custody of the child?
Well, actually, that issue gets threshed out during the process of legal separation. The issue of custody pendente lite becomes something which is which the judge will rule upon.
So it's not automatic. If you're legally married and you file for legal separation or become legally separated or become annulled, it's not automatic that the children go to the mom.
Merong presumption, no? Nasa batas din natin yun, na kapag below 7 years
Yeah.
old, then legal separation or annulment, it goes to the mom. May ganung presumption. Pero yun nga, again, we go back to the rule that if it's proven na unfit yung mother to have the custody of the child, then it can be given to the father.
What kind of action does the father, the biological father, take? Kunyari, in such a case, no, I see that the mom of my child is unfit, yun nga, and she's a vagrant or what have you.
Well, file ka ng custody. You have to file petition for custody.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And you have to prove that the mother is in fact unfit to be a mom to the child.
All right. So we have a caller on the line. Her name's Malu. Malu, good evening. Malu?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. What is your question, Malu?
Sir, ganito po. Kasi po, may isang babae, may 5-year-old daughter siya. Ngayon po, may asawa siya, pero hindi po sila kasal. So, nag-separate po sila. Ngayon po, kasama po siya ng aking manugang sa spa, nagtatrabaho. Na-pregnant po siya ng kanyang kaibigan po. Tapos, ngayon po, nalilito po siya kasi hindi po siya makauwi sa kanila dahil hindi magagalit po ang nanay niya kasi dinagdadagdagan pa daw niya yung problema. Ngayon po, sabi ko, wag mo ilalaglag yung bata. Although I'm 60 years old, may mga anak po ako na may asawa pero wala pa po kaming apo. 3 na po yung anak kong may asawa.
Okay.
Ngayon po, gusto ko na lang po kunin yung bata. Sabi ko, dito muna kayo tumira sa amin. Ako nang bahala sa'yo. Sabi niya, cesarean po ako. Sige, sabi ko, papaalagaan kita sa doktor. Tanungin natin kung pwede ka ma-normal. So, ganun po ang nangyari. Ngayon po, dito po siya sa amin. At pati anak niya, inaantay namin po 4 months na po siya on the way. Ngayon po, ano po ang mga legal na gagawin ko para po wala pong hassle ba sa pag-adapt namin? Kasi po, talagang ayaw niya po ng bata na siya ang magpapalaki. Wala po siyang capacity, wala po siyang trabaho. So yun po.
Okay.
So we have here
So,
adoption.
Adoption, yeah.
Adoption, yeah.
Inaabangan na ba?
Yeah, but you can't adopt a child that hasn't been born yet. Hindi pa pwede,
So they can't begin the process
No.
Yes,
No, you
before
cannot.
the child is born.
You cannot.
Okay, but at least to give Malu a head start para mag-prepare na sila, ano yung kailangan nilang i-prepare for her to adopt the child?
Well, paglabas ng bata, yung consent ng mother,
Biological
So
mother.
affidavit of consent,
yeah.
from the mother. Okay,
Tapos,
mukhang yun madali na lang.
of course,
okay?
and then she has to gather evidence on her behalf once she starts the process of adoption.
Saka merong tinatawag na pre-adoptive counseling that the adopter and the biological parent have to go through before they can actually
And
initiate
which
the application.
agency should they approach for the pre-adoptive
The
counseling?
DSWD.
Okay,
DSWD,
so they should
yeah.
call the DSWD
Yes.
Yes.
to have a representative
Yes.
conduct the pre-adoption counseling.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
And then for the affidavit of consent, I guess, Malu, you asked for an assistance of a lawyer para ma-draft yun along,
Opo.
para masignan din nung mother
Dapat
yung
may
affidavit
consent.
of
Dapat may consent yung
Yes.
mother. And
Opo.
then, pagka panganak, you then have to go to DSWD for that
Saka siguro
pre-adoptive
idagdag lang natin.
conference.
Ma'am, sir, attorney, may question pa po. Kung kunyari po, pinanganak po, kanino po sa birth certificate mag-a-appear ang name? Sa mother
Sa
po.
mother.
It would still be the mother. Please do not register the child in your name because the child is not yours when it was born, no?
Okay.
So,
Krimen po yun.
krimen po yun, ma'am. Krimen po.
Oo, Malu, yun yung sinasabi namin kanina na tinatawag sa batas nating simulation of birth. So, kailangan, ipangalan mo lang dun sa mother. Tapos sa father, lagay niya lang yung pangalan ng tatay. Anyway, it doesn't make the father basically part of the child's life. I mean, technically, biological father, kailangan na nakalagay doon. But when you go through the process of adoption, since magbibigay naman ng consent yung mother, that's part of the documents that will be required.
So, i-prepare din ninyo siguro yung mga proof ng
Right.
good moral character, yung financial
Yeah, capability.
ITR,
Ay.
bank certificates kung meron.
And saan court nila to ifa-file?
Well, it is in the place where they reside. If
Kung
it's
nasan
in
yung
Laguna, then it's in Laguna.
regional.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
family court.
Yeah.
Family court.
Attorney, one more question po. Mahal po ba magkaroon ng legal adoption? Malaki po ba money involved?
I think depend. And I mentioned ni Attorney Derek yun, no? It depends on, I guess, the law firm that you're gonna tap. At yung, I guess, kung sino yung adapt nyo nga, it would really depend. No, Malu. But I think the first step you need to do, or the first step, yung affidavit of consent. And then after that, you go to DSWD.
Yeah.
DSWD will then guide you. Kasi meron naman silang mga officers of the day doon, and they will guide you accordingly. No, nag-guest na rin namin ng DSWD dito.
Well, maybe siguro if you're looking for a lawyer, ask na rin DSWD if they've had experiences kung sino in your area yung mga adoption lawyers.
So,
Para
the PAO also, baka nagpo-provide yung PAO ng
Yeah, public assistance.
But it's always a good idea if you get lawyers, you get from your locality na lang para hindi na masyadong mahal, ano? Kung sa Laguna na lang yung kunin yung lawyer para mag-initiate ng adoption proceedings mo, mas makamura kayo kasi syempre pagdating sa appearance fees, malaking bagay if they're
So
just
po,
from there.
maumpisan po namin adoption after the mother gave birth already.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
madam. All right.
Thank you po. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Malu.
Thank you,
God
Malu.
bless
And
you.
in the meantime, the child can live with them, no? The child and the mother.
Yes.
Yes. Oo. Our next question is from Donald, and he wants to know, can a father get back his surname from an adopted son?
So,
So parang gusto niyang
decision,
bawiin.
Surname.
parang babawiin na yung
Mukhang
adoption.
hindi nag-behave yung, baka hindi na gusto yung ugali.
But binabawi
Son.
yung surname.
Oo. Dati sa old, sa family code, bago yung Domestic Adoption Act, pwede yun. Pero ngayon hindi na. Hindi pwedeng
Once you've
i-rescind.
given it,
Hindi, once na inadopt mo na, hindi mo na pwedeng bawiin.
Nasabihin na bawal mo na gamitin yung surname ko. Okay, but this is a good time to mention what are the grounds for rescission of an adoption, meaning where you have the adoption
Yeah.
rescinded, meaning binabawi mo yung adoption legally.
Yeah.
What are the grounds?
So, una, we need to clarify, the only one who can rescind would be the adoptee. Yung
Meaning the bata.
Oo, na inadopt. So ano yung grounds? Pwedeng repeated verbal abuse, di ba? Yung physical abuse, sexual assault, ganyan.
The adoptee ang
Ng adoptee. So, yung adoptee yung gagawa nun. Ngayon, since kung minor pa siya or incapacitated, the DSWD will have to enter the picture para i-rescind.
So adopter
No.
Cannot. Adopter
Oh,
can
kasi,
never.
because
rescind
remember, the functional equivalent of adoption is making it a legitimate child.
Yes.
And you cannot have
Get rid of
there
your
any
child.
acts
you cannot
unlegitimize your
Pero there's a legal remedy kung ayaw mo, siguro kung hindi na talaga siya karapat-dapat na maging anak mo, what you can do is to disinherit.
disinherit.
Disinherit. There are grounds
There are grounds for
pero there
disinheriting.
are grounds for disinheriting.
Yeah.
Not because galit ka or
Right.
makulit yung anak mo, you can disinherit them. You have to check the law to see what the grounds for disinheritance.
And disinheritance only helps insofar as yung kung ano mamanahin nila galing sa'yo. Hindi yun nakaka-effect dun sa apelido nila.
Surname,
That's not.
hindi rin.
Okay. Now, our next question naman is from Marianne. My husband and I want to adopt my sister's illegitimate daughter. We are currently here in Metro Manila, and she's living with my mom in Mindanao. My sister is in the Middle East with her second child and her new husband. Her dad abandoned her but has signed before on her birth certificate to acknowledge her. How can we adopt her and gain full custody of her?
Okay.
Right. So did you get the question?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we did.
So all right.
Well, first of all, they're both Filipino citizens.
Yes.
So dadaan yan ng domestic adoption.
So pwede.
Dahil nandito rin naman sa Pilipinas yun, the fact that the mother is abroad does not have any bearing insofar as what law will be used.
She can give her consent naman, di ba?
She can.
She can, but her affidavit of consent has to be notarized abroad,
Abroad.
no?
Yeah,
In
sa
the
Philippine consulate. That's
in
consulate.
Middle East.
That's right.
Okay. So no,
So no impediment there.
No
Yes,
impediment.
you
Wala
can
naman,
you can adopt. So you have to go through the same process again. No?
Okay, and then we have another question from Neil. I'm an Australian citizen with a son to my Filipina fiancé, who sadly passed away due to complications while giving birth to him. I am presently in Australia and have obtained an Australian citizenship for my son, and am now in the process of applying for his passport. While here, my son is under the care of his grandmother and aunts. Because I am not familiar with the laws in the Philippines, where do I stand in regards to custody over my son?
Okay.
Well,
it's a foreigner? A foreigner.
Yeah, this is already going to be a foreigner that wishes to adopt a child, it becomes a little complicated because the mother is already gone. Kung buhay pa sana yung nanay.
Pero kung wala namang problema siguro dun sa pamilya and he's being acknowledged as the father, then he enjoys parental authority over the child.
Yeah,
and
pero-
he can have custody kung wala naman silang
Yeah, there-
problema as regards the
Yeah, pero I think the issue here is that
He wants to bring
ina-apply ng
Yes,
Australian
he wants to bring the
citizenship.
baby to Australia. He's already applying for an Australian passport for the child. So in this case, I think he needs
goes through
to
the DSWD,
adopt.
no?
Yeah,
I mean, he has to go through
I
the
think
DSWD. That's-
there's a specific law.
Yeah,
the
on
for-
foreign
yes.
adoptions.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a
yung
inter-country.
adoption.
Yes.
Yes. And this also requires a child custody.
Yes, so
And in this case, who can he approach? to start
Inter-country
the
adoption
process?
board, no?
Yes, that's
Merong there's an inter-country adoption board. I think there's one in Australia where he resides, and he can initiate the process there. And the fact that this child is the son or the daughter of his late wife would have a great bearing insofar as yung trial custody is concerned, and the approval that the board may potentially give to him because of yung affiliation niya with this person or yung
Right. All right. Now we have a caller on the line again. This time it's a caller named Cristel. Cristel of Quezon City. Good evening.
Good evening, attorney.
Good evening, Cristel. What is your question, Cristel?
Good, attorneys, my mom has a twin sister, and we don't know actually if she legally adopted this cousin way back when she was 10 days old. And then this cousin now is, she has 3 children, na 2 years old, and I think 4 years old, and another hearing impaired na 6 years old, and from different men. And now I think the whole family is burdened because of her unfitness to take good care of these 3 children.
Okay.
And parang kami yung twin sister ng mom ko yung nagbibigay ng money lang para masustain nila yung everyday living. Can I parang endorse si DSWD na yung mga bata para hindi na yung buong family namin yung burden dito.
Okay, so let me get this straight. No, you have bali an aunt, a twin sister of
The
your
twin
mom,
sister, yeah. The
who
main
has a daughter whom you feel was adopted, right?
Yes. She's
okay.
adopted way back, I think 10 days old, but we're not sure if she's actually legally adopted.
All right.
Is there some what appears on her birth certificate, or is there any documentation that would show that she was in fact adopted?
Parang binigay lang po yata nung mother-in-law nung aunt ko yun eh.
So wala
Parang
siyang
I
birth
just want to
certificate?
get rid of the fact na parang sweetik kasi siya sa family namin.
Sweet.
Alam mo yun?
So in a way, you,
I think
yeah, she's
she
a burden.
has 3 kids
Yeah.
na hindi niya naman inaalagaan. And it's the aunt of Cristel taking care of the 3 kids.
I guess they want to
Oo.
escape from the legal obligation to support
Kasi,
this
So,
relative, right?
yeah, so in that case, can they just turn over the custody of these 3 children to the DSWD?
Well, they can't, physically take the kids and then bring them to the DSWD because the mother still has presumption of having had custody over them. You
Yeah,
could be charged with kidnapping.
Siguro what they can do is if they feel na neglected yung mga bata or abused or
Yes.
parang inaabandona nung
Sumbong
they can
nila.
report
Or
Sumbong nila.
neglected by
Yeah.
the mother. They
Yeah,
can
but-
report
yeah.
to the DSWD.
But I think Cristel, your question is you want to be able to just get away from the obligation of
I
supporting
think,
her,
or
right?
maybe I think Cristel is
yeah.
also concerned for the welfare of the children,
children,
because they have a
yeah,
mother
yeah.
who's not taking care of them,
Yes,
it appears.
yes. Oo.
So I think tama si Attorney Sabonay dito na you can report that to the DSWD and they can investigate the fitness of the mother.
Yeah.
Or they can do it this way. Why don't they work within the presumption of being a relative to this to the mother, and then initiate adoption proceedings and have the mother turn over the sign
Have an affidavit.
have an affidavit of consent, allowing them to adopt the children.
Yeah,
But
Cristel,
I don't think that's
Kung gusto nyo, kung gusto nyo.
Kung willing, Cristel, kung willing yung mother ng children na magbigay ng affidavit to allow you to adopt them, then that's fine. No? But I don't know, we're not sure if you want to do that. I don't know if you want to adopt the children.
No, not really.
Not really.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
So I think that's why they're not prepared to adopt these kids, but they also want the kids to have a fit parent. So tama, maybe the best way
Yes.
for them to do is report the matter to the DSWD.
Yeah,
So the
that's the best.
DSWD can investigate
And-
if she's really an unfit mother,
And protect the
then
welfare.
they can, diba? Because in that case, if you have an unfit mother, they can get custody
That's right.
of the
Yeah,
children.
state can. State
And of
can.
course, the
You can
child,
get custody.
and the mother can even be held liable for child abuse.
That's
or
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope we answered your question, Cristel.
Yes, thank you very much, attorneys.
All right.
Okay, thank
You're welcome.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.
Plural
Interesting.
talaga, attorneys. Okay, we have another question from Joy. My children are under the custody of my ex since they were born. We parted ways, but we were never married. My children are 10 years old and 8 months old. My ex and his family has denied me from visiting my children. According to them, I abandoned my children and therefore have no legal rights over them. I left my ex because he was hitting me, plus I needed to find work so that I can financially support my kids. Do I still have a chance of getting them back? Ang sad naman, no? Siya na nga yung battered partner, and then she had to go away, and now she can see her kids. And one is 8 months old, so...
Yes, definitely. She has the right to get custody over over her children. Anak niya tong mga to, so she just needs to file the proper action.
Habeas corpus niya.
Habeas corpus niya, mag-petition for custody siya. In fact, kung battered nga siya, she can actually use yung anti-vowsy natin.
Yeah, violence against women and their children law.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That includes a provision on getting custody of the children.
And sinasabi din doon na even if you suffer a battered woman syndrome, hindi ka disqualified to have custody. So
Yes.
So technically here, the parents, the family of the guy cannot prohibit her from seeing the children.
Absolutely. Because in this case, kung talagang there was some way that minanipulate nila na makuha nga nila yung mga bata, then she can even file criminal cases against them.
Now, what on the other hand, no, what kind of defense will the family of the guy have?
They mentioned abandonment.
Kasi
And ano yung mga normal factors that the court considers to say that the parent, a mother or a father, has abandoned the child?
So pwedeng yun nga, in-abandon dahil hindi na nagpapakita for a very long time. Tapos wala namang communication. Tapos pwede rin one of the things that can be considered, baka meron silang agreement. Kung meron silang extrajudicial agreement na binigay pala niya dun sa lalaki yung custody, then that can be a basis for saying na, winive mo na yung mo.
All right, we have another caller on the line. This time from Joey. Joey, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Yes, what's your question?
Yeah, my question is, way back in the 80s, I was dating this one lady for mga 3 dates lang.
3 days.
Mga 3 dates, 3 iba-ibang dates, no? And then, after that, di na kami nagkita. And then after 10 or 12 years, I received pictures and letters na stating na, this is your daughter, ganyan-ganyan. And I out of jubilation, excitement, I answered back, so nagkaroon ako ng correspondences making it as if that I admitted that it's my baby.
All right.
And so until it dragged onto this years, now I felt that it might not be mine. So, but I know that those letters that I gave is an admission that I'm accepting that it's my baby. Now my question is there a way of reversing the, because I know that my surname was placed by the mother, it's my surname that she's carrying. Is there a way of reversing it legally other than DNA testing? Because I'm not sure if she is mine.
Okay, now
Okay.
he's questioning
the
the
affiliation,
filiation.
right?
Oo. So what
Right.
does Joey have to do in this case?
Yeah, kasi the child is getting his family name, right? Yeah, so
Well, the DNA evidence already conclusive. Insofar as to prove his not being a father of.
I
But
think
they
he-
haven't done that yet. Diba, Joey, you haven't taken first wala pang proceedings and then to question yung filiation ng bata with you.
Yes.
And
There's
second,
I didn't go into that step yet.
And you
So
don't,
wala
you don't wanna
pong DNA test,
I think you
right?
don't want to go
Not
through that
yet
test.
whatsoever.
Do you
but
want-
he's willing, right?
Are you willing, Joey, to go through that DNA test, or you'd rather not?
Yes, I'm willing to go. In fact, I tried to be frank with that daughter of mine
Okay.
and said if she's willing, but she's reluctant about it.
What does he have to file in court, Joey, in this case? Just to clear the legal
anong
issues and
specific-
whatever doubts if this child is
Anong
really
specific
his daughter.
specific action that he needs to file?
They can question the filiation, no? He can file a petition in court questioning the filiation of the child. Kasi unang-una hindi naman sila married nung
mother.
mother niya. no?
Yeah, 3 days nga lang eh. 3 days of
3 days,
dating.
yeah.
Although sometimes that's also possible that they'll have a child.
Yeah, sure.
So where can he file this case? Joey, where are you from?
I'm from Makati.
Makati. Okay,
So family court in...
family court.
in Makati.
Yeah, go to a family court
Go to a
in
family
Makati.
court. Yeah, of course, go first to a lawyer. Because this is a special proceeding. I would imagine
That's right.
this is a
It's
special
special
proceeding.
proceedings. Yes, yes.
It will be a formal proceeding, and obviously you'll have to build up your case. So just like any other case, you have to get a lawyer and proceed with this special action.
Yeah, in a way, well, with the dawn of DNA evidence, no, your fears that the letters and the correspondences that you sent are going to be used against you will give way to the conclusiveness of DNA evidence. No?
So Joey, I hope we answered your question. At least that will resolve doubts.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
We have another question
Yeah,
from
from Carla,
Carla.
yeah.
And she just sent this in. I just want to know what are my rights as the godmother and aunt of my 10-year-old niece. The child has clearly stated to me that she would rather stay with me than go with her mother, who's my cousin. My cousin just got out of rehab and has no work to support the child. My niece has been brought up by my parents and me since she was young. My cousin has not been taking her medication to control her mood swings, has not been visiting her doctor regularly, and we are suspecting that she is back to her old ways. I want her to move out of our house and either adopt or ask for custody of my niece. Which one is the better option for us?
Right.
Okay.
I think
So
your
you have
best option
parang
is
unfit mother again.
Yeah, but your best option is to adopt the child.
Adopt the
Yeah.
child.
Yeah, because you are like the mother of the child already because you were the one that was raising the child for all intents and purposes,
Together
while
with
the
the
mother was being reckless and irresponsible.
And then she even mentioned that the child even prefers to be with her. And this is, again, what you already mentioned earlier, Attorney Sabunay, na they take into account the best interests of the child. And based on some of the custody cases I've handled before, adoption cases, they actually, it depends on the age of the child, but they can ask the child to testify, right?
That's
And
right.
As to
Yes.
the preference.
Yeah,
But in this case, though, they would need the consent of the mother, right?
Yes, pero siguro what she can do first is to declare na yung mother is unfit to be the mother.
To have that declared.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
separate court proceeding,
Yes.
right? Having the mother declared unfit, and then later on, getting
File for
adoption.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, secure the consent of the child because the child's
Yes.
already 10 years old.
Yeah. I think one thing we have to clarify, if a child still has a parent, you can't just suddenly adopt
Yeah,
them.
you cannot-
No.
If
Yeah.
in this case, especially if she doesn't want to give the consent of the
Yeah.
to the adoption, then in this case, they would have to first get file a court proceeding to declare the mother as unfit, and then file for adoption.
Right?
Yeah. So kasi hindi nga, it's not an abnormal situation. Lalo in the Philippines, no? Because, like I said at the start, no, we have extended families. Minsan cousins take care of, ay, mga magpipinsan sila or an aunt taking care of a child. Normally you have these situations, and then when the time comes nga, when you have to establish filiation, this is what happens.
Yeah.
Now,
I have another question since we're on the topic of adoption again. It's becoming more common here in the Philippines that there are some same-sex relationships. And I've had this question I've encountered this question several times as well, where some couples of the same sex want to adopt a child, and they usually ask, are we qualified to adopt a child, considering they are of legal age, they have stable finances? Is that a disqualification?
Well, you can't adopt a child as a couple. But
Cannot.
You cannot. But you can adopt the child as an individual and just raise the child together with your partner. But,
But
of
they
course,
have to choose who between them
will adopt.
Yes.
adopt. They cannot be like parents
no.
and adopt jointly.
Well, functionally, they can be like parents, no? But legally,
Legally, they're
Legally,
not,
they
it's
cannot.
not a civil. It's not a civil union.
yes, because we do not recognize same-sex marriages in
Yeah.
the Philippines.
Okay, I have a question from a friend. No? As I mentioned earlier, foundling, she then registered the child in her name, all right, as the parent, as the natural parent, as the biological parent. Now, in that situation, obviously, unless someone questions it, there's a presumption of regularity unless someone questions it later on.
That's right.
So she is a bit concerned. She's a bit concerned, and she was asking whether she should adopt. I said that'll be strange if you're adopting who is on record your biological child. So in that case, adoption wouldn't be an option, right?
Yes, so you don't need to adopt a legitimate child.
I think she naninigurado lang siya because obviously
That's right.
Later on it might be questioned by other relatives.
But if you try to adopt your legitimate child, the court will ask why.
Siguro mauungkat yun ngayon.
Yeah.
So you'll have to file
So
a
that's why she's
correction.
stuck between a rock and a hard place. Kasi she wants to protect the child and to legitimate the child who is actually on record a legitimate biological child.
But that would be putting the cart in front of the horse
Yeah.
at that point in
Very
time.
tricky.
So
situation.
talagang sabi ko sa kanya, you just hope na lang that your relatives are friendly. They won't question it. Diba?
Yeah,
All right.
that's true. But for now, I think since we're about to end our show, it would be helpful to our
Recap.
viewers
Yeah,
to
to-
recap because we took
Okay.
up a lot of things here.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And ang daming callers din, no?
Yeah.
So, one, let's go to adoption first. So, adoption, one tip for especially same-sex partners out there, you're qualified to adopt as individuals, but you cannot adopt together as a couple. You can't be like the other regular parents na husband and wife and jointly adopt because only married couples can adopt, and in the Philippines, there's still no law on same-sex marriages. And then other things, maybe attorney, you can give us a summary of requirements to adopt, yung general requirements lang.
So, general requirement, if it's not your child, you need to adopt. At the same time, kung mag-asawa kayo, you need to adopt jointly. And you can adopt if you are of legal age, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and financially sound.
Yung financially sound, sorry, how financially sound? Because others would be simple means lang,
Right.
middle class, and how wealthy do you have to be?
There is no hard and fast rule as regards financial soundness.
Capability.
Pero for as long as you have work, you can feed the child, you can send him or her to school, then I think that would suffice.
Right.
So there are no restrictions. Can I adopt, let's say, a cousin? Can I adopt a nephew? I can adopt. So there are no restrictions when it comes to filiation.
No.
Yes.
In
And
fact,
can you adopt from abroad?
Yes. Well, in fact, foreigners can even adopt the blood relatives of their spouses.
Yeah. So walang I guess the only
But they have pagka-foreigner ka and you're not really married to your partner, there has to be, you have to respect the 16-year age gap.
Yes.
Yeah, because the exemption is only if this is your own biological child or if this is the child
The
of
legitimate
your
child.
married partner. And Attorney
Attorney
Derek,
Derek,
what
yeah.
about the requirements for custody? Who gets custody?
Okay, well, it's very simple. If you are legitimate, the child is legitimate, husband and wife. If the child is illegitimate, it is the mother who will have custody over the child. Of course, we use yung tender age presumption, which is children below 7 years old are presumed to be in the custody of their mother. The mother does have the custody of their child, but can be deprived of that custody if certain conditions are met with regard to there being a danger to the children they have custody over.
And just a final thing, I know there's an expression that you can always waive your rights. Can you waive your parental right and duty?
No, of course.
You cannot. All right. You cannot. So you can't just say, "Oh, I waive my rights, so bahala ka na." You can't do that. All right. All right. Thank you very much. That is all the time that we have for tonight. We would like to thank our guests, Attorney Frederick Vincent Lu, Managing Partner of the Lu Mamangon Huco Law Office, and Attorney Ricky Sabernay, Associate at the Castillo Laman Tan Pantaleon and San Jose Law Officers, for being with us tonight. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. If you have any questions on our topic for tonight, you may share them with us on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights. Good night.